'Cause all of me loves all of you. Love your...
What's up, my restored beauties? Welcome back to my channel. Before we begin, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for the support and the love that you show every time I upload on this channel. And also for those of you who comment below, just know that I really appreciate every comment. And before we begin, if you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing and by clicking the red button, and also click on the bell button. This way YouTube notifies you every time I upload a new video. As many of you know, this month we have been talking about the 5 love languages. Last week we spoke about receiving gifts. This is the book called The 5 Love Languages, and it's written by Gary Chapman. It's New York Times bestseller. I'm not getting paid to say this, just so you guys know, but I love it. I read it and I'm gonna read it again. And also down in the description below there will be a link to go and buy the book, and also the same link you can hit and do the quiz with you, your husband, your partner. This way you know your partner's love language, your spouse's love language, and it will help you both communicate better. Get the book. Let's get started. I have to put this on simply because my hair, it's curly. So now that it's growing, little curls here and here are starting to like form. So now I gotta tame it by putting this thing on. The light might be different today because I am shooting with my studio light, and because today is very dark. Yesterday was nice, warm. Today is completely different, cold and dark. Today we're going to talk about acts of service, meaning doing something for your spouse or your partner around the house or even outside the house. If your spouse's love language is acts of service and all they hear from you is words of affirmation, kind, sweet words, sometimes in their mind, or they may be thinking, please, you know, I really don't want to hear this, like, you know, I would love for you to show me, you know, by doing something. Like, if you love me, you know, please help me around the house, or do something, or do the dishes for once in a while, or pick up after yourself. That is what your spouse's thoughts might be in that moment. And don't get me wrong, words of affirmation are nice and sweet and everything, but if your spouse's love language is acts of service, let's say primary, because you can have a lot, more than one, but if that's their primary love language, you saying sweet words here and there may not mean nothing, or may mean just like, you know, one ear and the other out. So I'm gonna take Jesus as an example of acts of service. We know, well, if you know the Bible and if you know Jesus, you know that he did a lot of acts of service. But one that stands out that can be translated in a marriage relationship was when Jesus was with his disciples. He sat down and he washed their feet. Back then, I mean even now in some places, but back then they were sandals, and they came from a very dirty, sandy environment. So for someone to sit down on their knees and wash your feet in that situation, in that condition, that is an illustration of love, of expressing your love for that person. So Jesus illustrated how we should be loving each other, even if it means to wash your spouse's or your partner's feet, and in both sides, not just one side, you know. But acts of service are an expression of love if the motive is love. In my culture, back then, I don't think it's exercised now, maybe more in the mountains or in villages where people are let's just say more like living in a more remote, you know, life, off the grid. Well, back then in my culture growing up, I'm 36. Okay, so that's like growing up, you know, my mom had to wash my dad's feet, but my dad never washed my mom's feet, you know. It was just part of the culture. Women had to wash their men's feet, so it doesn't matter, you know, how bad they smelled. Not just men, but they also had to wash their sons' feet, you know. So basically women had to wash every male's feet in the house, you know, whether that was your husband, and if you lived in a large family, you know, it could have been your husband, your brother-in-law, your son, or if there are more than one, you know. So you had to wash, and you had to wash their feet. And if you were a new bride, it was a big thing. Like, you had to get on your knees, wash their feet. And back then, even though you had a bathroom, if you had a bathroom, you as a woman had to take a small round container or a round plastic bowl, I don't know the size, and a towel here and a pitcher with warm water, and you had to go around everybody in the house, and they would put their hands on top of the bowl, and that's how they washed their hand. They washed their hands while you poured the water, and then you offered them your shoulder where you had the towel, and they washed their hands. And you did that for everybody in the family, especially if you were a new bride. I don't know where the tradition comes from. Why? My point is, different cultures have different customs and traditions, okay, in doing acts of service, okay. But that type of acts of service was more like, it makes the woman sound like she's a slave, basically, you know. Like, because nobody was washing her hands, you know. She has to wash her own hands, but she had to make sure everybody else got their hands washed. And it was just, it's, you know, it's a type of mentality, you know, in that culture. I don't know where it came from. I never liked it. I had to do it. But maybe your culture, your tradition, your family has a different custom or a different way of showing or doing acts of service. But in Jesus' culture, you know, when Jesus sat down, being God, you know, he got on his knees and washed his disciples' feet, you know, where in reality the disciples we're supposed to wash his feet. But Jesus wanted to show that we're all equal, we're all the same, you know, no matter your position in life, you know, whether you work all day, because Jesus was preaching all day, Jesus was teaching all day, nobody was washing his feet, you know. But he didn't come in and just say, you know, in a braggadocious way, or he didn't come in to his disciples and say, wash my feet because I've been on my feet all day preaching, teaching, you know, working, whatever. He didn't say that. He actually, after doing all that, got on his knees and washed all of his disciples' feet, as showing us that that is true acts of service, no matter your position in life. You know, I don't care if you're somebody who works all day, you know, because there are men in this society, you know, that you think just because you work all day and you come home, and then if your wife's love language is acts of service, and she's expecting you to help her, you know, a little bit around the house, clean the dishes or do something, and your mentality is like, you know, or your answer might be, what are you asking me that for? You know, I've been working all day on my feet, you know, all these hours, and you expect me to help around the house. Yeah, I do. What's wrong with that? This is your house too. This is your family too, you know. This is your life too. So what's wrong with that, right? So you have to find a balance, you know. But you will, and then stuff like this, misunderstandings like this create miscommunications, create arguments, fights in between the spouses. So before you get into any of that or any relationship, any relationship, it's good for you as a couple to read the book or take the quiz and know each other's love language. This way you don't fight, you know, you don't get into these arguments, you know, and you know, and also you don't expect somebody to just read your mind, you know, and say, oh, you should know that that's what I like and you should be doing that. But women, if your man, no matter how much he works, does things around the house, you know, helps you with laundry or helps you with the kids, or cleaning, tidying up, cleans after himself, he's a keeper, and you should not be abusing that. You should not be abusing those acts of service. You should be thankful and saying so. You should be mentioning it to each time he does something, does an act of service around the house, because that is the way he's expressing his love to you. So don't abuse it, you know, be thankful and appreciative. Even if his cleaning or his tidiness is not according to your standards, you know, like my husband could be cleaning right now or doing something. Like I had this, I guess it comes with the OCD territory. If you come and clean for me, or you trying to do something, you know, I'm just gonna let you know that I'd rather just do it myself, because I know that there's, you know, there's a way that I like things to be cleaned or done. So I don't want to come and tell you, you know. And I used to do that to my husband. Don't touch the dishes, you know, you're doing it wrong, or this way it's supposed to be done. But now I've come to the terms that, you know, if he does something, you know, I should just say thank you, and be thankful, instead of just nagging and criticizing and pointing out, oh, you did it wrong, you know. Because we all know, of course, nobody can do things the way we do it, but you never know. Here are some of the things you may be hearing. You may hear yourselves saying while arguing as a result of lack of acts of service around the house. Your husband might say something like this: you never seem to be satisfied with my gifts. No matter what I say, buy, or do, you never seem to appreciate it. And that might be true or false for some of us, but for those who it's true, it may just be a misunderstanding. They may seem like they don't appreciate your kind words or your gift, but what it really means is this: their love language is acts of service, and they expect you to know it. Ladies, no matter how please know this, no matter how cute your man may seem or look, he can't read your mind. You know, he may not know what you're thinking, what you're expecting, if you don't say it. That is why you need to take the quiz and save yourself some headaches and fighting and trying to kill each other. And when you take the quiz, you will find out that your spouse's love language may be acts of service. And this way you don't have to be told all the time. You don't have to wait for them to expect, you know, that you should be doing, you know, should know. You will be doing acts of service around the house voluntarily, and this is a sign you expressing your love toward your spouse, because you know that's their love language. So make sure you take the quiz. It's not a shame, and share it with your spouse. It will actually help you both communicate better, and by learning each other's love language and knowing how to express it. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't, and follow me on all my social media. All the links will be in the description below. Also, if your love language is acts of service, comment below what is something that you would like for your spouse to do around the house. Alright, this is it for today. I have one more topic coming up this Wednesday, so stay tuned. If you enjoyed this, feel free to share it with your friends on social media. I would really appreciate that. Be blessed. Bye-bye.